Previously, we've seen how easy it is to connect to a VPN server if the provider offers a VPN client. As I said earlier, most VPN providers do not support Tails. Therefore, if you want to connect to a VPN from Tails and your provider does not support Tails, you'll have to manually modify the firewall settings, install the needed software, and connect to the VPN server that you want to connect to. So in this lecture, I'm going to show you how to do that so that you can connect to any VPN server from Tails. Please keep in mind, like I said earlier, connecting to a VPN from Tails is optional. This is not a required step because, as we know, Tails automatically forces all traffic to go through the Tor network. Therefore, by default, it is more private and more anonymous than most operating systems. So the main thing that I'm actually going to be showing you in this lecture is how to configure Tails so that it redirects data to our VPN provider and then connect to this VPN provider. So let's go to Tails. As you can see here, I haven't even logged in yet. Before doing that, you need to add an admin account. So I showed you how to do that before. We're going to click on the plus and we're going to click on the administrator password, and we're just going to set an admin password so that we can execute commands with admin privileges. We're going to click on add to add it, and then we're going to start Tails. Now, once you're inside Tails, I'm going to go and start my terminal. So we're going to go to applications and run the terminal from here. This is basically a program that allows us to execute commands on the system. I know it sounds a little bit scary, but don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it. And the first thing I want to do is change my privileges to admin privileges because I'm going to be modifying the system settings and I'm going to be installing additional software. Therefore, I need to be admin for this. So to change our permissions to admin, we're going to do sudo su. It's going to ask you for the admin password. So I'm going to put the password that I just set at the start of the video. Now, if you notice, at the start, it was saying Amnesia, which is the user that we were using, at Amnesia. But now it's saying root at Amnesia, meaning that we're going to be executing commands as root. Root is the admin user account on the system. So I'm going to clear the screen, and the first command that I want to run is a command to install OpenVPN. OpenVPN is a program that we're going to use in order to connect to our VPN server, regardless of what VPN provider you're using, whether you're using Nord or any other VPN provider, it doesn't really matter. You can use OpenVPN with all of them. So the first thing that we need to do is install this program on Tails. And to do that, all we have to do is do apt-get. This is the program in Tails that we can use to install other programs. And what we want to do is install. And the program that we want to install is called OpenVPN. So apt-get is a program that we use to install other programs. Install is what we want to do. We want to install another program, and the program that we want to install is called OpenVPN. I'm going to hit enter. And this is telling me, do I really want to do this? I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to type Y from my keyboard and hit enter. And perfect, now OpenVPN is installed, as you can see in here. Now you can see the notification that we have right now. It's asking us if I want to install this program only once or install every time. If you click on install every time, Tails will install this program every time you start Tails, because as we know, Tails is amnesic. So if you pick install only once, it'll only be installed for the session. If you restart the computer, it'll be removed. So I'm going to click on install every time, and this way every time I start Tails, it'll automatically install OpenVPN for me, and I'll be able to use it without doing the apt-get command that we just did. So now that we have OpenVPN installed, we're actually ready to go and connect to our VPN. But before doing that, you need to go ahead and download the configuration files of your VPN. Now you need to get these from your VPN provider. Most VPN providers will give you that. The process of doing that is different. You might even need to communicate with them. But right now I already have them downloaded in my Tor browser persistent directory in here. These are the configuration files that I need for my VPN provider to connect using OpenVPN. The main file, which is the config file, is the file with the .ovpn extension. If I double click this file, you'll see the OpenVPN configurations. And all you need to do is basically run OpenVPN, the program that we just installed, and tell it to use the configuration in this config file. This will work on any system. You can even do it from Windows or Linux. But it won't work from Tails because, like I said earlier, Tails is configured to force all traffic through the Tor network. So before doing that, before trying to connect to our VPN, we need to modify the firewall settings so that all data is forced to go through the VPN first and then go to the Tor network. So to do that, I'm going to open the configuration file for the firewall. So I'm going to go back to my terminal and I'm going to do gedit. Gedit is a text editor. So I'm basically saying I want to use a text editor to open a text file. And the text file that I want to open is the text file that controls the firewall in Tails. So that text file is stored in etc firm, and the name of the text file is firm.conf. So we're doing gedit because that's the text editor that we want to use, and we're telling it we want to edit the following file. If I hit enter, this will open the file for me, as you can see in here. And what we want to do, like I said, we want to add an exception for the VPN server that we want to connect to. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for where it says whitelist access to local resources. And in here, we're going to add the information of the server that we want to connect to. We can get this information from here, from the config file. Like I said, this is the file with the .ovpn extension. So the first thing we're going to do is type daddr to specify the IP of the VPN server that we want to connect to. And we can get that from the config file. It's after the remote in here. So we have it right here. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. Then we're going to need to specify the protocol. So I'm going to type proto followed by the protocol. Again, looking at the config file, we can see the proto is UDP. So again, we're just going to type UDP in here. Then we need to specify the port. So we're going to type dport. Again, we're going to get that from the config file, from the remote entry. So the remote contains the IP followed by the port. So we can see the port here. It's 1191. Again, we go back here. 1191. And we're going to say for this specific IP, with this specific protocol, with this port, I want you to allow the admin user, the root user, to do anything. So we're going to open two curly brackets and we're going to say mod owner. The UID of the owner is root. Like I said, root is the admin in Linux. And we're going to say we want to accept all connections that this user does to this specific IP with this specific protocol with this specific port. The next thing that we need to do is redirect and force all traffic to go through this VPN server so that anything that the operating system does will have to flow this way, and that way it is very difficult for other programs to access the internet directly and therefore leak information about our real IP and real identity. So to do that, we're going to scroll down to where it says Tor is allowed to do anything it wants to do. We're going to say this can only be valid if the outer face, so the interface in which data flows through, is TUN0. Now, TUN0 is a virtual interface that doesn't exist right now. It will be created once we connect to the VPN server. And what we're doing right now in here is forcing all traffic to go through this interface that will be creating the encrypted tunnel between our computer and the VPN server. So that's it right now. First of all, we added a rule to allow Tails to connect to the VPN server. And second, we configured the firewall to force all traffic to go through the connection of this VPN server. So I'm going to do Control S to save this. And we're going to do Control Q to quit the file. We're also done with the config. So I'm going to close it in here. And I'm going to clear my screen. And right now, we just have to do one more thing before connecting to the VPN server, which is restarting our firewall for these changes to take effect. To do that, we're going to do etc init.d firm, which is the name of my firewall, and we're going to say I want to restart this firewall. We're going to hit enter, and if you fail at this stage, it means that you misconfigured one of the rules. So please just revise the video and make sure you set up the rules exactly like I did. As you can see, I was able to restart it with no issues at all. Therefore, right now, I am ready to go ahead and connect to my VPN server. Now, before doing that, let me just show you right here. As you can see, the configuration files are stored in my home persistent Tor browser. So I need to navigate to this location before being able to use these files. So we're going to use the cd command to change my current working directory to this directory. So we're going to do cd followed by persistent. And you can use the tab to autocomplete. For example, I'm just going to type TOR and press tab to autocomplete Tor browser. If I hit enter, you'll see that I am inside the correct path right now, same path as you see in here. Therefore, right now I can go ahead and use this file to connect to my VPN server. So we're going to use the program OpenVPN that we installed at the start of the video. So we're going to do OpenVPN --config to specify the config file. And again, as you can see in my case, the config file right here is called config.ovpn. In your case, it might be called something else, but the config file is always the file that ends with .ovpn. So I'm going to type config.ovpn. And before I hit enter, just going to go over the command. We're using OpenVPN. This is the program that will allow us to connect to our VPN server. We're doing --config to specify the config file. And my config file is called config.ovpn. I'm going to hit enter. And as you can see, it's going to ask me for the password. This is your password to connect to your VPN server, not the password of the system. So I'm going to input mine right now, hit enter, and perfect. If you see initialization sequence completed, this means that the connection has been established. Now you will also notice that the onion icon in here will have an X as if you're not connected to anything. Don't worry about this. You're seeing that because right now the traffic is forced to go through the VPN server, like I said, and that's why the system thinks that it's not connected, but it is actually connected to the VPN server. To confirm this, I'm going to go and run my Tor browser. And I'm just going to go to check.torproject.org. And perfect, as you can see, it's telling us that my browser right now is configured to use the Tor browser. So right now what's happening is we're connecting to the VPN first, and then our traffic is routed to the Tor network. And then, like I said, we can bounce through 3 nodes and then go to the internet or stay within the Tor network and access Onion hidden services. Now, just to make sure that this is the way our computer is set up and it can't access the Tor network directly or the internet directly, what I'm going to do in here, I'm just going to go back to my terminal window and I'm going to press Ctrl and C to quit the running program right here. And now if I go back to my Tor browser and refresh the page, you will see that I do not have connection. And that is perfect because what I just did right now, I disconnected from the VPN server. And because I did that, I can't access anything. And this is exactly what we want. We want our computer to be configured in a way that it forces all traffic through the VPN server. If you want to go back to the previous configuration where traffic is forced through the Tor network directly, all you have to do is simply restart Tails. Tails is amnesic. All of these configurations will disappear and you will be connecting to the Tor network directly as usual. Now this could be a feature and can be something annoying if you always want to connect to a VPN, because every time you restart Tails, you will have to do this. You'll have to do all of the steps that I showed you previously in order to connect to your VPN provider, because your settings will be reset every time you restart.